Welcome to JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports takes from around the country. Please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps with visibility and it really helps with the algorithm, and I would greatly appreciate it. And if you like this video, also please consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community and really something special, and I absolutely would love to see you there. Now, without further ado, let's get to it. We're with First Take, talking about Russell Wilson and Sean Payton benching, whether or not Russell Wilson was disrespected.
On Wednesday saying, quote, God's got me. I'm looking forward to what's next. All right, let's just talk about this because it would be good to get you guys' input on this. What do you think? Is Russ being treated unfairly?
Well, he's being treated without class and without professionalism. Fair does not matter in the NFL, okay? Life in the NFL for everybody, specifically quarterbacks, is not fair, okay? But here's where I that's my first time of hearing Sean Payton's comments. I got a ton of respect for Sean Payton and what he has accomplished as a coach. We can't sit in a press conference and say, well, the push behind this is strictly to get spark on the offense, when per the reports, and if the reports are true, that there was a go-to with Russell Wilson's representatives saying, hey, we want you to alter the contract and the timing of it when it comes to some of the language. Those two things can't happen at the same time. Right. We can't sit there and say, well, this is just to play better on offense or spark the offense, when we know that you've already went to try and do something to the contract. The second thing is, you can't sit there and say it's only and all about winning. You're 6-3 in your last 9 games. You're still in the playoffs. Right. So, and again, if this was a decision that was made strictly because of, well, our chances of get to the playoffs are now 1%, and this is the first time we're hearing about how this was being felt about in the building, different conversation. It can't be about, well, I'm only about winning, when per the report, and if it's true, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, you went to him and tried to alter the lane.
Okay, so I want to speak more about the being treated unfairly. Whether we want to say it's right of what Sean Payton said or the benching of Russell Wilson is relevant to trying to win, I'm less interested in that right now. I've already spoken about that in previous videos with regards to this, more specifically talking about Colin Cowherd's view and first things first and stuff like that. So I want to focus more on this idea of being treated fairly versus unfairly, because I'm more interested in that in this moment. Absolutely, positively not, okay? Russell Wilson has been paid hundreds of millions of dollars. Let me say it again. Hundreds of millions of dollars to play a child's game. He plays a kid's game. He has been nothing but blessed from every inch of the universe to be able to make all this money and to play football, a child's game where you just, throw and catch, that's all the game is. You just have a catch and throw, tackles on people. It is a child's game that you learn how to play when you are a little kid, okay? And he gets paid hundreds of millions of dollars. So no, if you get benched, if you get traded, if you get cut, if you get this, that's all part of it, okay? How many of you have worked a brutally difficult job, okay? How many of you have been fired for no reason of your own? You've been laid off, you've been working crazy long hours, you're busting your butt for a promotion that you never get, or you're busting your butt for a raise that you don't get. You get transferred and now you have to go to a different office, you have to travel, you have to move, you have to do all this type of stuff, and you're making like 65 grand a year or something like that. That is a hard life. That is brutal, okay? Those people deserve our compassion and empathy, okay? Someone who's making $33,000 a year, working 50 plus hours a week, and is busting their butt and just can't get any farther in life, no matter, despite their best efforts, nothing to do with them just being lazy or anything like that. It's their best effort. They're doing everything they can, but they're just limited by everything else around them, okay? That sucks. That's being treated unfairly by just the universe at large. Russell Wilson getting the gift. If Russell Wilson never played football again, he just got cut and people were to say, we don't want him anymore, he's still not being treated unfairly, because every day you're in the NFL and getting paid all of that money is a gift. You could have nothing but ultimate gratitude. That's why I have zero, let me say it again, zero sympathy for professional athletes who get to live this most amazing, privileged life when it comes to them complaining about the ups and downs of their sport. You think you're just supposed to have it all? Like, I love when players get traded or they get cut or something, and they go, man, this is ridiculous, or I would expect to be treated more like a human, or this or that. I just moved my family, this or that. I get it that there's some drawbacks to your career, and there's some drawbacks to you playing professional sports, but you are complaining to people who don't even make a percent of what you make, who don't get to experience all of the things that life has to give that you get to experience because of your fortune and fame and privilege and where you're at in your life because of such, okay? Most likely, you've been rich and famous if you're a professional athlete since you were like 20 years old, 19 years old, right? Maybe not rich at that age if you're playing college and stuff, but as soon as you hit pros, you were making more money than 99.9% of the country. That is a fact. That is a reality, okay? So you do not have my sympathy, okay? If you had this crazy freak accident injury, then yes, I would, then my heart, aches for you a little bit. But besides that, I just don't, okay? Because even if you only played even an athlete who played a couple years in the NFL or just, in any professional sport and made a whole bunch of money and then got injured and they could never play again, but they're not like paralyzed. They can still live their life pain-free and still be happy and healthy. They just could no longer play the sport. Even my compassion, empathy is lacking for them because they still got to, just playing 1 year is, again, 99.999999999% more than anyone else in the world, okay? So they still got to do more than what anyone else gets to do. So why should I feel bad for that person? Under that logic, we should feel bad for the person who never made it, right? That person who's just like, a substitute teacher who, again, is making $35,000 a year. They were a great basketball player, but they just weren't good enough to get past, college level. Why not feel bad for them? I don't understand. So this whole notion of Russell Wilson being treated unfairly, I think of this, for any of you that ever watched Mad Men, the TV show, one of my favorite shows out there. There's an amazing scene where one of the characters is, what it is this woman works at an advertising agency. And her boss, who's kind of like, a little tough and rough, Don Draper, I'm sure you guys have maybe heard, even if you haven't seen the show, John Hamm. And she's like, you take all the credit for the work. And he's like, I'm the boss. He goes, I make your little idea into, essentially like a masterpiece. And she's like, but you never say thank you. And he then screams at her, that's what the money's for. That's what the money's for. That's why you get paid hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm going to pay you hundreds of millions of dollars. And if I want to bench you, I will bench you. If I want to trade you, I will trade you. If I want to cut you, I will cut you. I will do all of these things I want to do. That is a stipulation. You think that you're supposed to be able to get all this money, all this power, and not have to give up anything? You're just supposed to be the king at the mountain? You're just supposed to be God himself? No, screw that. So I'm so passionate about you. Probably, if you ever seen my other videos, you probably have never seen me this worked up before, because I am so passionate about pushing back against the narratives that these athletes need our sympathy, that we should feel bad for them, because they don't need any of it. Any of it. It's amazing that they somehow have tricked everyone to giving them sympathy. They're tricking people who make so little money relative to what they make, that live such harder lives relative to what they get to live. I'm not flying on private jets. I'm not getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm not going to Met Galas and all these events. I don't got a little place in Aspen. I didn't buy the most expensive, largest house in all of Colorado. I don't live that life. I am not going to feel bad for you that you're being treated unfairly. Have you ever been yelled at by a boss? Have you ever been in trouble at work? Have you ever been fired? Have you ever gotten, misaligned for something you didn't do? I feel bad for you. I do not feel bad for Russell Wilson. So this is absolute nonsense.
Language within the contract. Those two things can't happen at the same time. I have no problem with Sean Payton wanting to bench him. You are the head coach. You are entitled to that. You're the owners, the Walmart family. You guys can do whatever you want, but bench him. Don't go to him and say, well, again, per the reports, we want the language altered because we're trying to protect ourselves. But you don't do that to a guy that's a Hall of Fame type of player, or the career was on that trajectory. You don't do that to a guy who was the Walter Payton Man of the Year.
And hold on, and to that point, It was right off a victory over the Chiefs where he had thrown for 3 touchdowns.
Guys, this from the beginning was a doomed relationship.
Sure.
It was the worst matchup schematically and stylistically of a quarterback and a head coach, and personality-wise, it was a complete miss, right? It's the reason that in the first press conference for Sean Payton, when asked about Russell Wilson and maybe some of the coaches around the building and all of that, instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to get into the building, I'm going to meet Russell Wilson, I'm going to see what was going on last year, what didn't work, so we can move forward together and find a way that it can work, he immediately dismissed him. That's never happened. I don't know. I've never had anything like that. That'll never be that. Which may be true, but from the beginning you said, you know what, I am in no way trying to build something behind closed doors with Russell Wilson that works, right? So we already knew that from the beginning that there was at least some level of contention between what he thought Russell Wilson was, who he perceived him to be, and who he thought a quarterback should be. Right? And then to hear that he tells Russell Wilson, stop kissing babies, you're not running for office. And I'm from New Orleans. Ain't nobody kiss more babies than Drew Brees. Ain't nobody go out and show their face and want to be not only the face of a franchise, but the face of a community more than Drew Brees. And that's what you're supposed to do when you're the leader of an organization and you've been blessed the way that these franchise quarterbacks are blessed. Nothing is wrong with that. But for some reason, with Russell Wilson, that rubbed Sean Payton the wrong way enough to go tell him about it as if that in some way affects his play.
Right.
So I think the reason why is because it's seen that Drew Brees and Sean Payton kind of grew up together, right? In the NFL, they won together, they have that bond together. So that's just like a familial bond at that point, right or wrong. That just is, what it is. Also, Drew Brees balled out his entire career, right up into the very end. Almost even won an MVP within his last couple of years of playing. Probably could have even played another year. He was kind of hanging on by a thread. Russell Wilson, it's largely seen as that he's falling, that he's just not as good now, and that he may have never been as good as he seemed in the past. That Pete Carroll was really the one who was kind of protecting him and all of that. And so if you're out there kissing baby, so to speak, and doing that, if Drew Brees was doing it, I think the experience was that it was more authentic, that they were winning, that it was also more authentic, and that it was less show. With Russell Wilson, there seems to be this idea that there's this inauthenticity to him, right? And that's not my opinion. That's the player's opinion. That's the people who have played with him in the locker room. Okay, the people from the Seattle and Denver. Think about if the locker room really loved Russ and really wanted to be with him, you couldn't bench him. Sean Payton wouldn't have been able to bench Russell Wilson because he would have lost the locker room. They would have said, why are you benching our guy? That's Russ. That's our quarterback. Like the Terrell Owens crying, that's my quarterback, man. That's what it would be like. It would be like, how are you going to bench my QB? That's Russ. That's our guy. Who are you, Sean Payton, to come in here and bench him? He's the guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's the guy who's been to more Super Bowls than you have. He's done more on the field than you technically have. So who are you? He won, Walter Payton the Man of the Year award or whatever. Who are you? So but that's not what happened. Sean Payton clearly felt confident enough to be able to bench Russell Wilson and not get any pushback from the locker room. That speaks volumes. If you have to see that as a big deal, okay? Because think of other quarterbacks that are really loved and appreciated, and that if you bench them, the locker room would go nuts. They just would. They would be like, "What are you doing? Are you serious?" Imagine if they tried to bench Josh Allen. Seriously, imagine if, I'm not even going to say Patrick Mahomes because that's obvious, right? But after Josh Allen has a couple real bad games, there's a million interceptions. Imagine if they benched him. They wouldn't. Imagine if the Eagles benched Jalen Hurts. Right, the locker room is just totally going to be okay with that. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Kelsey, and all of them, Lane Johnson, right, they're not going to speak up. They're going to be like, are you serious, Sirianni? It would be a mutiny. They would have Sirianni's head. They were able to bench Russ and have crickets out. Nothing. When Russ left Seattle, no one spoke highly about him. That matters. That's why Carson Wentz is not in the NFL anymore, because people weren't saying, we love Carson, we want Carson best. Every time Carson got shooed away to another team, they were like, okay, no players were like, Carson Wentz is the man, he's awesome, I hate to see him go. I'm sure they gave some generic stuff like, oh, best of luck, he's great, this, that, and the third. But he did not have a lot of love, so he was obviously not really that well respected, and he's no longer in the league because of it. And now you have the same thing with Russell Wilson. People see him as inauthentic. They make fun of him because they actually experience him, right? I'm just looking from the outside in. Even, Clark and any of these other guys, like, they only have so much experience with him. The real people that know who he is are the ones that are in the huddle, in the locker room, walking around the building with him. The people that truly interact with him regularly. And the people who truly interact with him regularly don't seem to like him. That speaks really loud volumes to me. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Please let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the dumbest thing ever, please let me know. If you think what I'm saying is genius and awesome, please also let me know. I obviously love to hear compliments. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into fights. And ultimately, let's just have some fun. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps with visibility and helps with the algorithm, and I would greatly appreciate it. And definitely please subscribe. We are growing this community, and it is awesome. I truly believe we can build something special here, and I absolutely would love to see you part of it. Thank you so much, and see you next time.